Is it just me, or have AAA games really gone downhill? Nowadays, they feel as if they're bloated or don't have any fun in them. And that's a darn shame. These studios have the most money and resources, and they should be able to create some absolute masterpieces. However, most of their games just don't feel like they're fun to play anymore. That's why I've switched to retro games and indie games. And recently, I've decided to replay Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. And as I was playing it, a realization hit me. This game that was made almost 30 years ago is more fun than many modern titles. And that's astounding. Because realistically, when you think about it, all this time for innovation and change, Link to the Past should feel like a relic. It can still be fun, but it shouldn't feel more fun than modern games. Yet it does. And I thought it'd be really cool to look into this game on a video and really dissect it. What made it so fun and enjoyable despite it being 30 years old? Let's sit down and let's take a look at Link to the Past. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is easily one of the most iconic games on the Super Nintendo. Arguably, it's second only to Super Mario World in terms of name recognition. And with that status comes a massive legacy. For few games have ever influenced their own franchises or the broader action-adventure genre more than this one. Ocarina of Time essentially borrowed A Link to the Past's core structure. 3 early dungeons followed by 7 major ones, a formula that became the gold standard for all 3D Zeldas for years to come. The bottle system made its debut here. The Master Sword, as we know it, was first introduced in this game. And while the concept of dual worlds, moving between a light world and a dark world, wasn't just done in this game, Link to the Past certainly helped popularize it. That mechanic alone laid the groundwork for dozens of games that followed, both inside and outside the Zelda series. Hell, Great Fairies were first introduced here, and they became so popular because of this game, George Bush made women a real thing. There's a ton that it does right, even by today's standards. Music does a fantastic job of setting the mood, never being underwhelming or overwhelming, always enhancing the experience and making it enjoyable. The pixel art is so vibrant, it's clean and expressive. It's not just good for the time, it's legitimately beautiful at times, with a clarity that makes the gameplay feel intuitive. And of course, there's that design polish in everything, from where the enemies are placed and how the environment subtly changes and gives cues on certain things in the world. It's really pretty, and it looks great even to this day. In fact, if Link to the Past didn't set up these conventions for the Zelda series, it's highly unlikely we would have ever had the games Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. So get that fanboy twink out of here! He wouldn't exist without this game. But above all, the thing that truly stands out the test of time is that this game has fantastic gameplay. And that's the real meat and potatoes I want to dig into. There are 4 main things that make this game absolutely shine the way it does. That being exploration, the items you collect, the combat, and most importantly, the dungeon design. These 4 things work so well together, and that's what makes this game absolutely special. First off, let's talk about exploration. It's easy to assume that just because a world has things you can find in it, then it must have some kind of exploration, and it must be good exploration, especially if it's things that are secrets, and that must make a good, explorable world. I'm here to break that illusion. Look, just because you have a world that has secrets, that doesn't mean your world is fun to explore, or that exploration actually matters. See, for exploration to matter, there needs to be two main things that are done. First, every item you find has some use that's actually beneficial to the player. And number two, that you find the secret all on your own. You aren't forced into it. The game lets you find it on your own. And that's what makes good exploration in video games. Not just finding things randomly. And luckily, Link to the Past, it gets that right. It scatters secrets all over the map. But they're not just random pickups or checklist fillers. They're actually useful. We're talking about very simple things like fairy fountains to restore health, and a few pickups like bombs and magic, all the way to big things like ways to increase your max life through heart pieces, places to upgrade items, sometimes full-on items, and most commonly, rupees. Sure, it's a shorter list compared to other modern open-world games, but here's the thing. Everything you find is actually useful, and that's important, because A Link to the Past isn't always easy. You're gonna take hits, you're gonna run out of supplies. So finding a fairy fountain or a stash of arrows, it isn't just a nice surprise, it's a real advantage. It means you're better prepared for whatever's coming next. And the rupees have a lot of purpose in this game. You'll end up spending a good chunk of them on potions for late game dungeons. So opening a random chest and finding a pile of cash, that's another step in preparation, making sure you can always keep your health up if there's no fairies around. And then of course there are the upgrades. Some of the best items in the game, like in my opinion the improved boomerang, are hidden behind secrets. And when you find them, you feel clever, like you've earned it. And that's what really sells this game, is how its secrets are presented. A cracked wall, out of place strange rock, a ledge that looks like you can climb it, but you can't. And these hints are subtly put in the game throughout the world. They spark your curiosity, they make you think, and when you act on that impulse and are actually awarded with something valuable, it reinforces the idea that exploration is worth your time. And that's what makes it work. Exploration in A Link to the Past isn't about checking off a box. It's about being rewarded for being curious. When you get a new item, it's not just for solving a single puzzle or defeating one specific boss. These items have layers! They're useful in combat, exploration, and they often have a hidden or secondary function that the game doesn't always tell you, but lets you find out for yourself. Take the hookshot, for example. On the surface, yes, it's kind of just a fancy tool for getting from one place to another, crossing gaps and maybe a few spot traps. However, if you actually decide to play around with it, you're going to find out it can be used to stun enemies. It can be used to collect items. And that's a really good thing, because now it gives you a reason to equip it other than just to have it for crossing gaps. It gives it depth. Then there's the magic powder, which might seem like a novelty at first. The game shows you it can change certain enemies into other forms. However, that teaches you, wait a minute, maybe this can be used on other things. Like, I don't know, turning anti-fairies into regular fairies? That's not just a quirky mechanic. That's free healing, if you know how and where to use it. It rewards you for experimenting and understanding enemy behavior. And then we gotta talk about the hammer. It's introduced to flip over turtles and smash down pegs, but honestly, it's a solid weapon in its own right. It hits hard, has a fast swing, and can be surprisingly effective against certain enemies, especially if you don't have the upgraded sword. Look, this Link may be a hoarder, but he is the best goddamn hoarder around. These tools remain relevant outside the dungeons where you find them. The overworld is packed with secrets and puzzles that encourage and sometimes require you to go back and use an earlier item. You might see a suspicious rock or an unreachable ledge, and then suddenly remember, wait, I think I have something that I can use there. This design does two good things. Number one, it makes the world feel connected. And number two, it gives real weight to every item you've earned. Even the armor upgrades, which are locked behind major dungeons like 5 and Ganon's Tower, feel well paced and rewarding. The key takeaway I want people to understand is A Link to the Past. Your items are more than just keys to the next room. They're useful tools, weapons, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. And the game is constantly encouraging you to find new ways to use them. That kind of design makes discovery feel meaningful and every dungeon reward very exciting. So how does the game keep combat interesting? Well, it does this by introducing a few enemies and mechanics early on, and then gradually they mix and match them. And this creates that challenge that many people like in this game. A good example are these skeletons. At first, they just jump away from you whenever you attack, and they walk around everywhere else. They aren't really that much of a threat, and you're first going to fight them in open, empty rooms. However, eventually you're going to end up meeting the red skeletons. These guys will attack you, but only after you swing at them. At first, these red skeletons are shown in the same rooms as the blue ones. Big, open, lots of space to run around and dodge. However, over time, they're going to be shown and you're going to fight them in spike floor rooms and pitfall rooms and alongside other enemies. Suddenly, this harmless skeleton you didn't have a problem with before has become a real threat. And that is because of the environment changing. Not the enemy drastically changing randomly, but the space they inhabit. That's the genius of Link to the Past combat. The enemies don't get drastically stronger or crazy overpowered too quickly. Instead, they just get thrown into a different environment. The game doesn't throw a giant skeleton at you that has 5 swords and an unfathomable amount of health, or some crazy mechanic that you have to just figure out of nowhere, and it instead asks, what would happen if we put these guys here, next to this spike trap? Maybe an anti-fairy. Oh, and you have to keep moving because of the Wall Master. Yes, there are new enemies as you progress, but they're incorporated in a way that makes you able to fight them in space where you can learn their patterns first. By reusing familiar enemies and new environments, the game challenges your memory, your positioning, and your problem-solving skills, not just reflexes. You're not just hacking through your way of mindless mobs, you're using what you already know to outsmart tougher combinations. It's smart design that makes you feel like you're mastering the game. And now we get to the biggest reason why Link to the Past still holds up today. And that is because of its excellent dungeon design. Every Zelda game, and honestly most adventure games, usually and eventually are going to throw you into a cave, a dungeon, a castle, or some kind of ruins. But A Link to the Past sets the gold standard. And that is because each dungeon in this game feels distinct. No repeating room layouts, no lazy copying pasting. Sure, some have the same mechanics like spike floors or pushing a button to open a door, fighting all the enemies. But every dungeon has its own identity and its own logic. First, progress is simple. Walk into the room, defeat some enemies, open a door. But before long, you're thinking on a much bigger scale. The dungeons become lateral. They span multiple floors, and what happens on one floor or one level can directly affect another. A great example would be like the Ice Palace. You're gonna fall through holes in the floor, sometimes unintentionally, onto lower levels. The floor layout is now part of the puzzle. Suddenly, you're not just solving one room, you have to solve the entire building. And that's where the spatial awareness becomes one of the most important tools in the player's arsenal. These dungeons aren't just about figuring out what to do, they're about figuring out where and how to do it. Then it gets even trickier. Now you're thinking about from door orientation to door orientation. Which rooms connect to which? If I enter this hallway from the left, where will I get out? Where does this staircase lead in relation to this one? Suddenly, you're playing 3D chess with tile floors and spike traps. It's not just puzzle solving, it's internal map making. You start recognizing shortcuts and identifying locked doors you can skip, or you can identify things in your memory and be like, oh, this is like this, so therefore this must work. And most of the time, it does work. Every time you play this game, you feel a little bit more like you're solving a Rubik's Cube, and you're trying to solve this dungeon from the outside in. Yes, it's tricky at first, but the game doesn't rely solely on combating enemies. It relies on the environment and using your memory and your knowledge of the mechanics to solve the dungeons. And it rewards you for understanding how the spaces work with each other and how enemies work with their spaces. And that's what makes dungeons so damn good. It feels like a lot of AAA developers have completely forgotten how to make a good game. And I think they've forgotten a lot of the lessons that Link to the Past taught us. Everything's bigger now. Bigger maps, longer campaigns, cinematic everything, bigger and better textures that tamper down performance and ruins the game. But they've lost sight of what makes games fun. Link to the Past didn't need a season's pass and 5,000 collectibles, a 40-hour tutorial, a campaign with all these explosions and magnificent stuff. It didn't need that. It simply put, Link to the Past respects the player's time, your intelligence, and your curiosity. And it still stands as proof that tight controls, tight gameplay, and good level design can carry your game for years to come. You don't need to market your game as the biggest and best. You don't need to do all this crazy texture work. You just need to make sure your game is fun to play with. And that's something that Link to the Past can definitely teach AAA developers today. Stop trying to do all this crazy, live service stuff. Stop trying to force in new mechanics. Make the game enjoyable on a base level, and then add on all your crazy stuff. And with that, I want to go ahead and end the video off here. If y'all like the video, please like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Anyway, like I said, I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye!